Hey and welcome to this video tutorial. Today I want to show you a few very simple but helpful exercises that will help you gradually master as well as improvise fast legato lines like the ones I played in the intro. A few weeks ago I made an in-depth tutorial on the song Always With Me, Always With You by Joe Satriani. That video is also linked up here for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Always With Me contains some very typical fast legato runs for Joe Satriani, and that's why I decided to make a detailed tutorial on the topic of legato playing for those of you who have never really done it before or who are still having some trouble at higher speeds. So let's move in a bit closer to the fretboard. First, I have a wonderful warm-up and strengthening exercise for you and your fingers. One that Joe Satriani himself used to show his students back in the day. For this, you play the following hammer-on pull-off pattern in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th fret using your index, middle, and ring finger of your fretting hand. You then go through this on every string one after another. Afterwards, you can also start using a bit more gain and muting the other strings below with your right hand to avoid unwanted noise. But it's definitely harder to practice this clean first than with distortion later on. And once you've gotten used to this exercise, you should then always practice with a metronome so you can practice playing the exercise both with 8th and 16th notes. For those of you who are just beginning to learn how to play fast on the guitar, it's important to understand that if you want your fast licks, runs and riffs to sound good, you absolutely have to pay attention to the rhythm of the material you're practicing. Lead and solo guitar is nothing more than rhythm guitar, just with more single notes. You can't play fast and sound good at the same time if you leave your rhythm up to chance. So I've got a metronome running here at 90 BPM, and I'll play the exercise slowly again for you with 8th notes first, and then with 16th note hammer-ons and pull-offs. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... You can do this not only here in the first 3 frets, but all over the fretboard. And if you, like me, play standing up on stage or in band rehearsals with your guitar hanging relatively low, then starting at the 5th fret, you should practice doing the whole thing with your ring finger instead of your middle finger, because that works better when standing with a low guitar. I noticed that right away when I first started getting familiar with this style of playing. So starting from this fret here, instead of playing this, you play this. While practicing this exercise, please remember to take short breaks in between to avoid overuse injuries. Otherwise, you might end up having to take a longer break because of pain. For our next exercises, however, we need not only 8th notes and 16th notes, but also 8th note and 16th note sextuplets. The legato runs I played in the intro and the ones Joe Satriani often uses are usually played as 16th note sextuplets. Whether you use sextuplets or straight 16th notes often depends on the tempo of the song or backing track you're soloing over. So now I'll show you how to count 16th note sextuplets and before that 8 note sextuplets so you can practice them slowly at 60 BPM first and then work your way up to tempos like 120 BPM with 16th note sextuplets. For that we'll use the Hydrogen drum machine. With this free drum computer, which you can download using the link in the video description, you can not only program drum grooves, export them and then use them for your own song ideas, but also set rhythmic accents, for example, with the stick element here. This makes it much easier for you to understand and practice new rhythmic concepts. Here you can now see 8th note and 16th note sextuplets played at 60 BPM. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since these are very hard to count along with, you should definitely practice 8th note sextuplets first, so that when you are ready to practice these, you don't have to count along to what you're playing anymore. The best strategy is to first reach a tempo of 120 BPM with 8th note sextuplets and then go back down to 60 BPM, this time with 16th note sextuplets. To make sure you don't just understand this rhythmically, but can actually play it with legato lines right away, take these 6 easy to play notes from the first fingering pattern of the A minor scale for the next exercise. That's A, B, C, D, E, and F. First, you can use the legato technique by picking only one note and hammering the next two, and on the way back, picking one note and pulling off the next two. Make sure to use constant alternate picking here. Down, up, down, up. Let's play this using 8th note sextuplets first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once that works cleanly with a metronome, you can play the same exercise again, but switch between legato and picked notes, just like I'm doing here. So I'll go 1, 2, 3 using legato, and then 1, 2, 3 picking every note. Then I go 1, 2, 3 using legato, and 1, 2, 3 picking every note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's important to practice both versions of this exercise because later on when you play freely and improvise, you shouldn't play everything using the legato technique. Instead, you should pick a few notes here and there. That gives your licks and runs more variation. Also, if you pick all notes, you can work a lot on your right hand accuracy and precision. I'll play this exercise in both variations again, but now with 16th note sextuplets. I you saw that I use constant alternate picking when I pick everything. That's the only way to gradually get this up to speed. One extra tip, if you play a lot of legato, the notes you pick should really stand out, so work on your picking dynamics as well. With legato, a bit more attack sounds much better right away. During this learning phase, please be very strict with yourselves and don't try to play this too fast too soon, ending up with sloppy playing. Fast legato lines only sound good if you give every single note the same amount of attention. For the last exercise, we're now going to learn how to expand this style of playing across the entire fretboard. To do that, we'll first take a closer look at the first three fingering patterns of our A minor and C major scale. Here you can see how the same 6 notes from earlier appear again in the second and third fingering patterns. All we need to practice now is connecting all these notes together while staying with our rhythm. However, for someone who hasn't worked on this before, that's easier said than done. So before using a metronome, you should first practice connecting all the notes from the first 3 fingering patterns without one. You can do this easily by adding the following additional notes as connections at certain spots. Once you've gotten familiar with the runs within these fingering patterns for a while, you can use the metronome again and gradually work your way up to fast 16th note sextuplets at 120 BPM using the same strategy as before. So I'll improvise something using 8th note triplets first. And now 16th note sextuplets. As the last exercise, you should also learn how to play such runs with regular 8th notes and 16th notes. I put the 8ths and 16ths at the end of this video simply because with 3 notes per string, they're a bit harder to play than sextuplets for many people. However, 8th and 16ths are important too because depending on the tempo, if you want to play fast runs, you often can't avoid using them instead of sextuplets. Here's an example for you. You just heard me improvising over a metronome with 150 BPM. At a song tempo of 150 BPM, 16th note sextuplets are extremely fast and very hard to maintain over longer periods, while 8th note sextuplets tend to sound a bit too slow. That's why at tempos between roughly 130 and 170 BPM, it's often better to use 16th notes when you want to play fast. You'll just practice these again without a metronome and as 8th notes. Just play a few runs with the first 3 fingering patterns and count your 8th notes out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. Once you can do it without a metronome, turn on the metronome, and then, using the same strategy as before, you work your way up to 16th notes again. And that's it for this video. I wish you lots of fun and success with these exercises, and I hope I was able to help you a bit. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and tap the little bell so you won't miss any new videos from me. I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye.